So this is what we're going to be covering today. This is the article down here: progressive exhaustion in infighting in a stalled movement. Can we reignite the fight? So that's the article that is written by Status Quo Substack, but is essentially about Jordan. But anyway, how I stumbled upon it was through a quote tweet. And I believe it was one of the first ones too. I don't think she deleted it because I went to, okay, here it goes. I went to my bookmarks and I couldn't find it. I thought I saved it. But this is the one, this is where I first saw it. Hopefully this means you'll stop participating in it since you've been one of the biggest participants. Maybe stop invoking Jimmy Dore's name and hating on him every chance you get. That would be a great start. So she quote tweeted, I'm sorry. Yeah. She quote tweeted Jordan's tweet. And Jordan's tweet reads like this: while taking time off after the birth of my daughter and to work on a book, I've had time to reflect on the deeply fractured and stalled progressive movement. Here's a perspective on collective exhaustion, infighting, and how to reignite the fight. So that is what he says the article is about. But the quote tweet, as you can see, was like, let me read it again. Now we read what Jordan says. Hopefully this means you'll stop participating in it since you've been one of the biggest participants. Let me go back. To reflect on the deeply fractured, and I believe maybe the fractured and stalled part of the progressive movement is what this person is referring to, and it's Jackie Jack. Jackie Jack is how I read that. So Jackie Jack. And now they go back and forth here, and he replies, you do know the person you're referencing has led this entire trend by leaps and bounds over anyone else by a lot. And just as he should have, just as the point is complete lands flat, he's getting ratioed on his own tweets. So he says this, that gets literally 3 likes because nobody's buying the shit, and then ratioed again. 65. I mean, that is astonishing. That is ridiculous to me. But anyway, because that's just simply not true. That's simply not true. So for any journalist, quote unquote, and I'm using quote unquote for this particular person moving forward, for any journalist, quote unquote, who can pretend and who cannot unbiasedly look at the landscape, who can clearly see that a specific person is not at all the problem, but that's what you want to perpetuate. That tells me where you're at still. So that tells me sort of, do I really think this article is going to be earth-shattering? Do I really think this article is going to be telling us anything? Do I really believe that? No. So let's dive into it. But first, I do want to get to a bunch of comments here. So we're going to dive into Jordan Chariton. And a lot of it is just self-promoting, but we're going to get into it right now. All right, let me pop it open here, everybody, and get this popped open. So this is on the Status Quo Substack here. I was reading some of the comments on there. Sorry. All right, so let's get to the actual article here since we have it laid out. I'm gonna blow this up a little bit. I don't know how much I might skip around because, like I said, a lot of it is just self-promoting. And I've never heard a journalist refer to himself being a journalist so many times as this person named Jordan Chariton does. Like I don't read Wyatt Reed stuff. I don't read Aaron Monte stuff. I don't read Max Blumenthal stuff. And then at the beginning of every article, it's like, or at some point in the article, my journeys as a journalist somewhere. But that's what you have to endure when you're reading any of Jordan's articles, because he needs you to understand he's a journalist and he needs you to give him praise for that. So let's start here. I write this a month into paternity leave as my daughter Lily sleeps cradled on my left shoulder. Yep, it doesn't get any better than this. Doesn't get any better than this, but let me write to you a bunch of bullshit is essentially what's going to happen here. Taking these weeks to bond with her while also working on a much put off book on the Flint water cover up has definitely been a change of pace from the nonstop reporting grind of the last 7 years. It's also given me some time to step back and take a 360 view of the progressive movement I care so much about. Like many of you reading, since 2016, I've gone nonstop in my career, traveling the country, reporting. Here we go. You have to insert. And now you can go on other articles on the Substack written by him where the same insertion of he's doing journalism. Never heard of a journalist writing in his writings or their writings, them being a journalist so many times. This speaks to the what is it? The white savior complex. And he's begging for acknowledgement. So let's try to get through some of this here. In my case, traveling the country, reporting in over 30 plus cities, I get what he's doing here. This Substack is a resume that he's attempting to put out to reconfirm. I'm not going to say it that way. Yeah, I caught myself. I'm not going to say it that way. So for you, maybe it was volunteering for Bernie or AOC or another political campaign and candidate. Perhaps you knocked on doors, made phone calls, made calls from a campaign office, donated the little money you had left over for the month, attended rallies, and argued with your neoliberal or conservative relative about the urgent moral need for Medicare for all. Beyond that, I likely met many of you. Good Lord, this is another one. Oh, God. I read this, but for some reason, I didn't feel like I didn't have this many in here. Here was another shout out to himself. Beyond that, I likely met many of you at Standing Rock, where you went to stand with indigenous people fighting for their water, land, culture, sacrifice, or sacred sites and sovereignty. Some of you went to Flint to help with bottled water distribution and other activism to support poison residents. You likely marched on the streets with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Dante Wright or Andrew Brown or Jalen Walker or any of the long list of unarmed Black men and women who were assassinated by police. At some point, you probably protested for Medicare for all, except for the Medicare for all march, or a Green New Deal, or saving DACA, protecting LGBTQ plus people, stopping pandemic evictions, canceling student loan debt, stopping the war machine. That has an asterisk over it. Or against name your toxic fossil fuel pipeline being rammed through your community. All right, so let's hopefully see if it's getting to the substance here. You might have shown up for a rally in solidarity for Amazon workers. Perhaps you supported in-person or online workers on strikes or conducting boycotts, joined a tenant union. Some of you even got involved with organizations like DSA, Sunrise, Sellout. All of these are sellout organizations. The Debt Collective, they're decent. Justice Democrats, Sellout Collection, Brand New Congress, Sellout. Our Movement, Sellout. Socialist Alternative. Really, that's two organizations that are decent out of all of these. Poor People's Campaign, that's for Democrats. In some or any, if some or any of these match your experience, you're probably feeling two ways. You're feeling disappointed and exhausted. I know I feel both. Oh, yeah, you can give her some. Disappointed. So if you're any of these, so it's a pretty catch-all of anybody of left thinking, left leaning. Because if you go from from the Democratic Socialists, from Justice Democrats who are very sellout to socialist alternative, that's a pretty wide gap. And then you don't have to say the Democratic Socialists of America, which is just a joke. Disappointed at the stark fall from the 2016 to now, from a progressive movement that was brimming with hopeful feelings of possibilities of having a shot at changing our corrupt governmental system, of producing greater economic, social, and racial equality, to one greatly fractured, splintered, demoralized, fighting amongst itself, largely disorganized and inactive. So I'm going to read all of that again. That was a handful, that last sentence or so. I'm going to read all of that again. But so if you're any one of those people, you are disappointed at the stark fall from 2016 to now. So he's describing between 2016, when all of us was supporting Bernie Sanders. Just he put together this coalition that believed in what he was saying, and did the same in 2020. I would say a little bit less stronger, but slightly less stronger, but still strong. So he goes to describe it. It was from a progressive movement that was brimming with hopeful feelings of possibility, of having a shot at changing our corrupt governmental system, of producing greater economic, social, racial equality, all of that, to now being fractured, splintered, demoralized, fighting amongst itself, largely disorganized and inactive, to a movement where people feel angry, hopeless, and cynical, but don't quite know where to place their feelings or what to do with them. To a movement where, as we've all been guilty of, our viral online spaces of independent progressive outlets that descend into an endless circular firing squad. This is him saying, my progressive policies are garbage because they're aligned with the Democratic Party, and I'm being attacked because of my terrible point of policy positions, and he's calling that a circular firing squad. With hosts and channels mostly fixated on categorizing who is the real left and canceling those that are fake sellout left, under the notion that once the so-called imposters are expelled, then we will truly fight the oligarch. This digital demolition has extended to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, and a variety of other platforms, where leftists who once stood together are now at each other's throat based on what they voted for, differences in political strategies, and differences in tone or temperament. The beneficiaries of this tension corporate CEOs, this is beautiful, the garbage that this guy is selling. The beneficiaries of this tension, corporate CEOs, corporate consultants, Democratic Party politicians. Does the Democratic Party politician includes the squad? Their donors, their think tanks, their corporate NGOs, and their corporate media allies who are thrilled to see us fighting and canceling each other rather than them. So let's zero in on this, because this particular part of the article does say a lot that we're going to have to address here. Because, like I said, this is a self-dealing article, self-promoting article more than anything else. And I read this to be as Jordan coming under attack for some of his policy flaws, strategy flaws, and RBN has pointed them out, and us pointing them out has caused people to now question Jordan. So now he's coming, begging people, trying to give you his progressive resume, and that's what he did in the beginning of this bullshit ass article. His progressive resume of how he's been there, how he's been there. When he's trying to put it in the cover of, maybe you've been here, and that's why you're frustrated, because you could have included Standing Rock without you saying I was a journalist there. Maybe you met me there. You could have included all of that without you inserting that you're a journalist. That's you trying to get credit. You saying the only thing that I have value because my policies aren't valuable. Clearly, people don't like me, what I'm saying. The Justice Democrat inside outside bullshit that you still trying to push. So now let me fall back on some of the work I've done in the past, my journalism work. So, and that's what he's doing here. So in this article, what he's trying to describe in this particular point is that as if YouTubers aren't real people. This is why I love when people say the online left. Do those online left, do they have real bodies? Like, are they just online? And I love it. They're online when they're saying this. They call out the online left as they're on online too. Yeah. So again, let's break this part down bit by bit to a movement where all we have been guilty of, whereas we've all been guilty of, our vital online spaces of independent progressive outlets have descended into an endless circling firing squad, and I don't see that. I don't see an endless circling firing squad. I don't see an endless. What's wrong? Okay, so I thought she was coming out. They're just getting popsicles. I thought they were coming out for something. My two girls. But anyway, yeah, you girls can get popsicles, I guess. Yeah. All right. So let's continue. Sorry, everybody. But I just simply don't agree with this description, because I don't feel like our online spaces has descended into the endless circling firing squad. What I see is, and what I can identify as what RBN is doing, as we have identified people who are white moderates, figuratively speaking, that meaning you don't have to be technically white to be that, and you don't have to technically call yourself a moderate, but you are in the lane where you are preaching and saying all the right things, sort of like what Jordan is saying in this article, in order to catch all those people, but you're not really willing to do. You're just trying to catch us so we can go. Let's be more cautious and let's do this slowly. Let's not be so adversarial. You're trying to restrain revolutionary energy, non-establishment energy. So that's all Jordan is doing here. But let's continue to read a little more into it and make this analysis. So, with host and channel mostly fixated on categorizing who is the real left and canceling those that are fake sellout left. Now, if RBN comes, if we say you vote for NATO, then that makes you not a left. That's what he's talking about. If you support people who support NATO if you support people who support the apartheid state of Israel, the genocidal state, according to the Palestinian Community Network, who was on here for one of our summits. So with hosts and channels mostly fixated on categorizing who's the real left, when you say real left, are you talking about, I'm saying he's trying to say there's a purity test and we're just fighting, bickering who's the most left and who's the most, but there is a line, people. And that's what this professional managerial class, types like Jordan, Chariton, they try to blur the line between nuance and straight he's trying to make it seem like a stance and being anti-war, there's nuances or levels to being anti-war. And having a particular stance on war or supporting it, for example, doesn't automatically not make you part of the left. And if you're supporting imperialist powers like the United States, if you're voting for any military budgets for the United States, that includes Ukraine aid, if you're voting to support NATO, how about that be the threshold? But what he's trying to do is trying to blur the lines as if there isn't clear lines before when you actually do an action to where we need to say you're not a leftist. He's trying to blur those lines. And to me, the most clear lines are when it comes to war and probably climate, and they're connected. There is no nuance to war. There is none. So, but that's what he's attempting to do here. Let's continue. Then we can truly fight the oligarch. So he's saying if we expel, then they're saying then we can truly fight the oligarch. This digital demolition has now look at how he's describing it. Digital demolition. We haven't been demolished. The Convo couch hasn't been demolished. Comrade Misty hasn't been demolished. Left Lens hasn't been demolished. Bad Faith Podcast hasn't been demolished. So what is he talking about? Except for himself. Has extended to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, and a variety of other platforms where leftists who once stood together are now at each other's throat based on who they voted for. So he's also saying this is what they are trying to do. You can vote for a guy who's against all the things you're for, and then people aren't supposed to have a reaction to that. And it's not just simply who you voting for, because Dr. Cornel West voted for Joe Biden. But you know what Dr. Cornel West doesn't go out doing? Shielding for Joe Biden. He did the vote, and he still critiques him on imperialism and says Bernie Sanders is still weak on it. That's the difference, Jordan. Is that if the professional managerial class just said, hey, I voted for him, outside of that, I'm doing everything else against him, okay. Then I can say that's you making a strategic, not even a strategic, that's you making a decision based on your life's experience that this is the lesser of two evils in your eyes, but you understand that this person is in no way good whatsoever, and you're never going to shield for them. All you're going to have is critiques for them and the people that support them. That should be the more the approach. But anyway, let's continue because I'm getting steeped in too much individual here. So let's continue here. The beneficiaries of this tension. Who's the beneficiaries, Jordan, of this inside game? Who's the beneficiaries of people putting their weight behind AOC and the squad even after they disappoint? Who's the beneficiary of that? Who does that serve? We asked that question here. Doesn't that serve the ruling class to keep having people support this sham of a squad, sham of progressives with their money and their support while they just continuously not deliver and don't intend on delivering anything? Because that's where the real critique is with you. You can say I don't tell people how to vote. I just make all of my content geared towards who you should vote. So miss me with that. So the beneficiaries of this tension of the people that Jordan is describing may be some of these people that he's describing here. The beneficiary of these tension. But that's not to say that the tension shouldn't be there. This tension is between reformists and revolutionists. This tension is between hardline policy standholders and milquetoast policy standholders. People whose policy stands can be manipulated or can be nuanced into something that is completely doesn't even resemble the initial belief. But let's continue. Of course, many progressives feel disappointed in the politician that got most of you involved in the first place, Bernie Sanders. Many of you worked hard to elect him. Yes. All right, let me do a check here. Many of you worked hard to elect him twice. For many, it's bittersweet. On one hand, you appreciate Sanders for fighting the good fight for 40 years, often standing alone on a political island, for taking a stand and running against the Clinton machine when the chances of victory were initially slim, for taking another swing at it for 4 years later. But objective people can also say that today Sanders has largely abandoned his political revolution. He's chosen not to engage with or activate his millions of supporters, not to lead them in agitating against President Biden, the corporate Democrat Party, or even the growing fascist Republican Party. Instead, he's taken a road of small ball. Instead, he's taken a road of small ball incrementalism inside baseball, where he works with his good friend Joe and the other corporate Democrats. Now, of all this article, this is the part almost all of this is a good assessment here of Bernie Sanders. And for somebody part of the professional class to go to say this much about Bernie Sanders probably took a lot for him. He probably was sweating and everything when he wrote this line. But let's re-examine what he's saying here. But objective people can also say that Sanders has largely abandoned his his political revolution. He's chosen not to engage or agitate his millions of supporters. And that's the part. Leading them not to lead them in agitating against President Biden. And that, to me, along with the squad and everybody else who have all these followers, and they haven't done that, to me, is the sign of if they're serious or not. Like, if you are able to mobilize people, and Bernie Sanders says all the time back in that campaign when everybody was friends, it's going to take a movement of multicultural movement, multi-class movement to tear this system down, but you refuse to start building that movement. Just makes me feel like you're not serious. But anyway, let's continue. The results has been policy crumbs that structurally changes nothing. Crumbs that keep our corporate governmental system in place. Sure, it's not the president. Sure, he's not the president. No reasonable progressive expected him to overturn the system as a single senator, but they certainly expected him to fight, to call Biden and Democrats to the carpet for abandoning the minuscule promises he made. A $15 minimum wage, a public auction, banning drilling on public land, 2,000. Yeah, these are bare minimums that Jordan is bringing up here. It makes sense to be disappointed in Sanders. After all, when you excite young people and reignite long, cynical, and checked out older progressives with talk of revolution, it's understandable for them to revolt when revolution shifts to maybe later. Although it becomes a bit of endangered species online these days, that kind of nuance still does exist. I don't think that's any sort of level of nuance. Everybody who has critiques for Bernie Sanders, I always hear them say good things, that how they used to love him. From, for example, Danny Haifong from the Left Lens, he speaks in this way. Nick always prefers when he's critiques. I used to love Bernie Sanders. So I don't think that, you know, I don't think it's endangered. The nuance on Bernie Sanders is endangered at all, but he is terrible now. Then there's AOC and the rest of the squad, who many of you actively worked hard to elect. They promised to bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party, but the ruckus has become ample magazine covers, book deals, speaking engagements, and voting along with Nancy Pelosi. Like Bernie, they too have stood up the activist base at the political altar, choosing to operate working with the Democratic Party. Within the Democratic Party, they've rationalized doing so by arguing that they are playing the long game, by claiming they have a strategy those outside of DC don't understand, by pointing to a narrow or incremental wins. Like Sanders, most reasonable progressives didn't expect the SWAT to overturn our corrupt system overnight or by themselves. No one expected them to go to Congress, snap their fingers, and grant Medicare for all. Most simply expected them to fight, to loudly blow the whistle on the corruption of the Democratic Party, to band together as a collective voting bloc in order to block progressives' corporate-friendly legislation. To use that threat to vote as a bloc, a threat to tank the donor-desired legislation Pelosi and company want in order to force real concessions for the left, to activate the base to protest in front of the White House and Congress. Not because it will get us not because it will get us everything we want, but because it is right. None of this has happened. As far as I can tell, the squad held no protest rallies to protest Biden abandoning $15 minimum wage, abandoning public option, abandoning $2,000 checks, abandoning paid sick leave, universal K, Build Back Better because Mansion Cinema, abandoning a pledge to end drilling on public lands, giving $32 more billion to police, allowing Moderna, Pfizer to withhold COVID vaccinations that they funded research from impoverished third world countries, trying to privatize Medicare, blocking railroaders from striking, etc. They couldn't strike on that because they have also voted. They couldn't. Were they going to hold a protest against themselves for voting for it? So they couldn't do that, Jordan. That part, Jordan. But let's get back to the article. All of the aforementioned disappointments, all of the aforementioned activism and organizing and volunteering you've all engaged in, seemingly to no avail, has led to individual and collective exhaustion. Certainly physical, but on a greater scale, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. All right. I feel it and see it when I'm on the road. Yeah, I was feeling one of those coming. Yeah, I'm not doing another one of his shout outs of himself being a journalist. So let's skip down. I myself have felt this way. Nearly a decade into reporting on the ground across, there he goes again, shouting out himself. Nearly a decade of reporting. I've never seen a journalist do this before. Never seen a journalist do this. This exhaustion, this fatigue, this alternating sad, lethargic, and pissed off feelings is part of caring about the world. It's part of having a stake in changing it. It might feel unhealthy, but I believe that it is entirely normal and healthy. Frankly, after all the progressive movement have been through in recent years, I would find one strange if they felt exuberant, super energized, and ready to battle right now. Yeah, I'll continue to read. Okay. I'm trying not to get really all right, so let's continue. Let's continue. I won't even say that. Okay, so after, and if any of what I'm describing is how you feel, just think how Black leaders, activists, and scholars have felt fighting for centuries for freedom, civil rights, voting, and economic and social justice. Indigenous people who have been fighting for centuries to take back what have been stolen from them by white colonizers, suffering through murder, kidnapping, rape, and genocide. For LGBTQ people who have been fighting for equality in this country for decades, achieving historical wins, only to then fight just to secure those wins. Latinos who have had to fight for decades against the dehumanizing and otherizing waged against them. The disabled who have been fighting society's collective disregard of them forever. So he got everybody. He checked off every group as he's trying to spin this. So a few years back, when I was on the road covering, God, that's him shouting out his journalism again. Quote, the struggle is crucial to victory. I didn't get it at first, but as time has gone, so let me read that for context, this last part, because this is part of what I'm going to be discussing here. Okay, so let's pick it up from here. So he's at a bar. I'll sit here. I sat down for several I sat down for several whiskeys at a bar. Next to me was a cameraman and an older Bernie volunteer who had been involved in the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War protests, and every major progressive fight since the 1960s. Maybe it was whiskey, maybe it was the cumulative effects of the ups and downs of covering the movement for years, but I told him I was losing hope. I'll never forget what he told me. Oh, this is so, this is so white savior channeling the energy of the poor, indigenous, Black, Latino, disabled, all the marginalized groups that he's covering. He channeled their energy, and when he was like just about to say, I'm calling it quits, this old Black civil rights guy who been through all the Black, does this not sound like a fucking movie to you? This sounds like a fucking movie to me. I'll never forget what he told me. You telling me this couldn't be the beginning of a movie? A white savior complex movie where you think it's about Black people, but it's really about the white savior in the movie? Quote, the struggle is crucial to victory. I didn't get it at first, but as time has gone on, I think I understand what he meant. There's no magical pill or quick fix for a political disappointment or exhaustion. So what he's trying to do is spin decades, century fight against oppression. He's trying to spin that and it taking that long to achieve certain milestones, right? He's trying to say the struggle is crucial to victory. So we're just struggling. That's not the role that the professional managerial class is playing in this analogy here. You're part of the group that's pushing back against the people that's struggling, trying to get free. You're not on the side. Simply covering people in Flint, covering people wherever all your journalistic shout outs in this article covering people and then going around and supporting the Democratic Party, or the people who support the Democratic Party, does what? It literally wipes out all the good you do. It literally does. And this is what we say about David Sirota's writings. What good is all of that investigative reporting is if at the end of the day you tell people to go vote for the people you reported on? That completely devalues everything you say. So you devalue all of your reporting by telling people to cozy up, to people to vote for in your way, Jordan, because you love to say, I don't tell people who to vote, but you just create content in order to tell people who to vote. Because if you're doing culture war stuff and your culture war is calling out Donald Trump or calling out Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you don't, whether you believe it or not, you're participating in the blue-red game. So let's continue. But that's the attempt here. And I really don't like this attempt by professional managerial class people, in particular white people who try to use Black historical struggle to explain away or to sort of answer or infuse that into what you're going through. Black people struggle against a system that is oppressing them, and the peoples in power oppressing them and holding them back, like burning down Black Wall Street, is in no way the same struggles the professional managerial class and you, Jordan, is going through with this, the failures of the progressives. Because the progressives are the people that's supposedly fighting these fights, but they're the ones we're disappointed in. That's the difference than the Black struggle, where you had people who weren't milquetoast. The Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X, they weren't milquetoast. They were just simply killed. That was our setbacks. Your setbacks is believing in a bunch of fucking fraud progressives who aren't delivering, and you're still trying to sell that game. Different worlds. Completely different worlds. Not comparable whatsoever. Especially when you are helping to prop up those very same progressives who are strike breaking. Let's continue. There's no final utopia or destination where we're simply one. There is an ongoing political, personal, and spiritual struggle. All of us, journalists, activists, and human beings, will have to go through the cycle that go with that struggle. This is the only way to build better character, to build fortitude, to build resilience, and to build perspective needed to achieve victory, big or small, in politics, or anything else in life. Okay, let's read some more. I think he was telling me what I'm telling you. You have to feel what you feel. The last 7 years of this movement have been a grind. We're all exhausted. Don't judge or overanalyze your disagreement, exhaustion, cynicism, or anger. Listen to and feel all of it. Take the opportunity to take a step back, not necessarily tuning out politics or activism indefinitely, but allowing yourself to take a break from it all, to reset, to recharge, to get perspective. Fortunately for me, I have been lucky enough to do just that for the last few weeks as I care for and get to know my newborn daughter away from the disappointments and exhaustions of the progressive movement. It has to be exhausting to keep trying to feed this progressive Democrat narrative after the squad keeps just delivering just terrible narratives after narrative. But I find it I find the timing very curious, considering the state of play for progressives and AOC after the strike breaking. I find this come to Jesus moment about exhaustion. I find it very curious, the timing. But ultimately, I nor you are any good to the progressive movement or any movement or each other if we still just one giant patchwork of burnt out, disappointed, exhausted, cynical, and angry. None of us are good to the movement if we allow the natural feelings to make us fight each other. Allow the natural feelings of disappointment, or how about the natural feelings of betrayal, or the natural feelings of realizing that somebody's not really fighting for what you are fighting for. And what he's taking as fight is a squarely landed critique on Jordan and other professional managerial class that is not it's not being received well. You see it in his tweets where he's not getting a response. He's getting ratioed in these conversations surrounding the squad and progressives. He's getting ratioed one after another, similar to Ryan Grimm. So this can't be a good time if you're a Sam Cedar, if you're Jordan Chariton, if you're an Emma Vigeland. What can you be saying right now about this group? As we head into a break for the holidays, consider whether you need a broader break for you. Although some might have fooled you into thinking otherwise, changing the corrupt government and country we live in is a marathon, not a sprint. That doesn't mean cheering for or accepting incremental change or victory. It means shifting your perspective to realize our fight is the long haul. Understand. I'll continue. There will be losses in certain years and stretches. They will outnumber the victories. There will be steps forwards where we think we are getting closer to victory, and then setbacks. There will be breakthrough victories. There will be periods of euphoria in our movement, like 2016, and there will be periods of despair, inaction, and isolation, like today. I don't actually think there's ever going to go back to any Bernie coalition. That coalition is forever broke because that coalition, part of the coalition, have decided to go all in on the Democratic Party and the war machine. So, but I believe there is hope. If I didn't, I would not bust my ass traveling. Here we go again, investigating, writing. Now, here is the part where Jordan should probably have kept this next part out of the article. And let's look at it. But I believe there is hope. If I didn't, I would not bust my ass traveling, investigating, writing, and reporting. I certainly would find something else to do professionally where I could make actual money. I'm making $40,000 to $50,000 less than I did 5 years ago. I don't even understand why this was put in here. Or this. So he's pointing out he's making 40 to 50,000 less. So the money that he's less making is more than what people make the entire year. And he don't see why he should not have put this in here. Like he's basically saying, look what I'm sacrificing for the fight, 40 to 50,000. And he doesn't understand how this is just an indication of privilege here, sir. You're making 40 to 50,000 less. And some people make 25,000. So you're making If you make 50,000, 50K, that's like two people's yearly income for some people. Not sure why he decided to put that in there, but it's very telling to me because this is what he's saying. All of you, you're sacrificing and police brutality. You're black people and indigenous and brown people are sacrificing their lives under police brutality. Palestinians are sacrificing their lives under the genocidal state of Israel. LGBTQ people, plus people, are sacrificing their lives. Standing Rock and all the other places he's reporting from. The indigenous water protectors. All of you, and my sacrifice is 40 to 50,000. Let's go. We should not be being led by people in the professional managerial class, specifically white people in the professional managerial class. Specifically white people in the professional managerial class that are still selling us on the inside-outside game of the Democratic Party. This is ridiculous to me. I'm going to scroll down. So he wrote a PS, and the PS is almost as long as the article. But I need to skim through this. It's so much. It's so long. Such a long article. So PS, if your reaction to reading this is to immediately open your Twitter, whip out a post, and blast this message, that's fine and dandy. Criticism always welcome. But before you do, I implore you to pause and ask yourself why. Because this was terrible and a terrible attempt at you self-promoting yourself because you're feeling the heat. There is no circular firing squad. You're feeling the heat because of bad policy that people are fed up with. And RBN is pointing that out. We're done with this inside-outside strategy. We're done with the progressives. We're done with the squad. We're done with the AOC. And if you're not on board with that, you're not on board with the working class. I mean, can you say that's not? Can you say? Do you detect a lie in that? Didn't the squad and progressive just vote to break a strike? So where's the lie in what I'm saying here? Let's continue with the PS. What purpose is being served constantly being at war with like-minded people? This is the thing. We aren't like-minded people. Literally, people are making it just because you believe in Medicare for all and the $15 minimum wage, that makes us all together, and it does not. Those are literally the bare minimum. That's not even a left. Like internationally, there's conservatives that want Medicare for all in other countries. So these aren't left ideas, Medicare for all. It's just that the left is the people that are pushing it. Sure, you might not agree with me or others who consider themselves progressives at all on all things or strategies, but what true purpose, what is the tangible positive end result that can be achieved by progressives constantly berating each other online to the point we're fighting each other more than neoliberals? I can answer this question. What purpose, what is the tangible positive end result that can be achieved by progressive constantly berating each other? So let me break this down. This is him saying, please stop coming after me. The tangible positive result achieved is for people to see, the working class people to see that these white professional managerial types like you, Jordan, are not the people that the working class should be listening to. So that is the tangible positive result that will come from what you call constant berating, what we call constant analysis of your failed advocacy, failed strategy. So there's a lot of positive, a lot of tangible good that comes from people like Jordan Chariton being critiqued and called out, and same with Marianne Williamson, same with David Sirota. These people who are supposed to be fighting the good fight. Think about this, and I'm going to give you an analogy, and you can say it's not. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to give you an analogy. Actually, I'm not going to give you that analogy. So let's continue. Your answer may be, quote, well, it's not actually infighting because the people I'm fighting aren't real progressives. If so, I kindly ask you to consider if now I was going to go there, but he jumped there too. For the most part, we have had, listen, so what he's doing now in this PS, this is the longest PS I've ever seen. He knows he wrote some bullshit. Now he's saying, let me go and preemptively answer all the attacks I know this is going to get, because I acknowledge part of this shit is garbage and people are going to have a particular reaction to it. So and that's what she's trying to hedge. He's trying to give an answer to critiques he already knows is going to be coming. Your answer may be, well, it's not actually infighting because the people I'm fighting aren't real progressives. That's what he's saying, because he knew this was going to be something. He's heard this before. This is his answer to that. If so, I kindly ask you to consider if, for the most part, we were all standing together 2 to 3 years ago with similar policy goals, values, and desires, how can, in your mind, so many of you once considered allies now be sellouts or the fake left? Very easy to answer. 3 years ago, we didn't have strike breakers. 3 years ago, we didn't have people voting to send $100 billion to Ukraine. 3 years ago, we didn't have the Iron Dome debacle bullshit. 3 years, you get what I'm saying? There was a lot of 3 years ago that we thought, hey, this is clearly wrong, but you guys stuck with them. You guys stuck with them. So in the same way that you're trying to say, you're not real, you're trying to answer the critique of you're not real progressive, that's why this is not really infighting. You're trying to say, well, the Bernie coalition didn't consist of only progressives, Jordan. The Bernie coalition did not only consist of progressives. It consists of conservative people also. It consists of people who had no political affiliation. So we had no illusion when we stood side by side with that Bernie coalition that some of those people may not have been as far left as us. But if we're talking about the Bernie coalition, okay. If that was ever reassembled, I can get your point, but we're not talking about a Bernie coalition. And what now makes you sell out and fake, Jordan, the Sam Cedars, the TYTs, the Cenk Uygurs, what makes you sell out and fake compared to what it was during the Bernie Sanders campaign is all the things that have happened subsequently. All of the things that the squad has done that has done nothing to break you loose from them. So we haven't changed. You have changed. You have decided to go along with this nonsense of the progressive strategy, this inside-outside game. You have decided to do that. So let me continue. Because YouTube hosts, you like say so? So this is what he's saying. So YouTube host Jimmy Dore, RBN, we're able to convince people who are otherwise love the Democrats, love the squad, love what they're doing, love the results, so we're able to talk people out of their genuine feelings of liking the squad into something else. That's the power we have. Is that serious? I mean, what's the reach of RBN? What's the reach of Jimmy Dore? He has 1 million followers. And like Rome's pointed out, that ain't reach. That ain't influence. Rome was like, these TikTok people got 16 million followers. That's influence. So to even pretend like Jimmy Dore or RBN even have the influence to affect enough people for this so-called infighting is absurd. As if it didn't come from a genuine place and disgust of people keep kowtowing, keep making excuses for this progressive strategy and wanting to redo it. Because today you aren't in lockstep on all matters and strategy. This is the thing they're trying to put together. It's okay not to be on the same page with a lot of different things. Strategy is not one of them. Because when your strategy becomes so weak to where now we're questioning if your strategy is to be weak, you see how strategy matters, Jordan? Strategy matters because of that reason. Because if you're failing, and you're failing, but you could be winning, because if you vote as a block, you could be winning, but you're failing still, then it becomes a question of, is this part of the strategy for you to fail, for you to be the lovable loser, like Pramila Jayapal and Nick always points out? That is her role, to be a loser. For argument's sake, let's say you believe in it's critically important that we rid the movement of fake progressives and leftists. Let's say you're successful. You've won. They're all canceled and discredited. Now, let me take this on. So he's basically of the fake progressives. Now, the squad are fake progressives. I think we can say that. And if you're still questioning that, then that's the problem. They're fake progressives at this point. But it's RBN's goal is to expose those who aren't giving good advice for the working class. We are advocates for the working class. So if you're still advocating for progressive policies, progressive Democrats, the progressive Democrat strategy, that's you're advocating against the working class. So that is something we're going to have to analyze on a regular basis. So I wouldn't say necessarily cancel but definitely discredit. Now, if this discrediting gets you to finally say, okay, let me update my beliefs and come on board with the Democratic Party is not the apparatus to go through. But you think you're just going to stay in 2016? So 2016 and 2022 are worlds apart. And that's where it feels like the professional managerial class is still stuck in 2016 policies. And we're like, nigga, it's been 6 years and the world has drastically changed. And you have not updated your policy positions. They're still very 2016. They're not 2022. Your policies of 2016 were radical back then. They're just regular now. What then with the fake expelled, how will the real progressives left over achieve Medicare for all, Green New Deal, banning fracking? I don't know. We're not achieving it now. So let me read this. I'm jumping ahead. What then? With the fakes expelled, how will the real progressive left over achieve Medicare for all, Green New Deal, banning fracking, saving the planet, overturning Citizens United, a $30 minimum wage, reviving unions? You see, he just named a bunch of stuff. If your answer is the real progressives have a third party, great. This is all like just garbage. It's so transparent, in my opinion. I'm going to stop here. I'm probably going to have to do this again because I feel like I just kind of scraped the top because this was a lot. This is a lot, and I haven't been in prepare mode. I told everybody earlier I've been sick, was out the entire Christmas. But let me bring up my bookmarks and get to one of our closeout videos. But in closing about this Jordan thing here, it's amazing to me. It's not amazing to me, but this to me is clearly a shot at trying to reset his image, uh, reset everything, reset relationships, reset. He's just trying to do a hard recalibration here, and it's just not. It's just not landing. And let's read this quote or this comment to his tweet article here. The article that he tweeted out. So let's read this comment. The TYT media sphere just reverts people back to the Democratic Party despite championing a few symbolic differences. For example, they are equaling big warmongering compared to the Democrats in regards to Ukraine, an imperialist conflict that could potentially end the world. Here he goes. Not sure what TYT media sphere you're talking about. Haven't been with them for 5 years. I have also never told viewers who to vote for or how. I've been on record to. That's what he loves to do. He loves to say, I don't tell people to vote for him, because he doesn't literally say the sentence, go vote for them. Truly cowardice way. Truly cowardice. And let's go to I want to go to the ones he's responding to. So let's go to this one. My breaking point with the squad and Bernie was Ukraine. They supported billions for war, but did nothing for people in their districts. But you failed to mention it because you supported the war too, Jordan. You supported Biden and war, and I ended my Patreon support for you. And this is really what Jordan wrote this article about. He is hemorrhaging people, supporters, subscribers. I'm not saying paying Patreons because I don't know his private. So I'm talking about subscribers, his views, because of what you're saying. No idea what you're talking about. I've been saying for months we should stop sending weapons to Ukraine when Russia initially invaded Ukraine. I agree with helping them in the immediate. When the immediate becomes indefinite and was clearly boondoggled, I said stop. So he's just like Kyle Kalinske and I think Marianne Williamson when we looked at it. So you were fine up until like 600 billion. Then it's oh, let's hold. Then what are you talking about? This comment is absolutely right. If you supported it in the beginning, isn't that supporting it? Jordan, isn't that supporting it? So the critique is absolutely right. My breaking point with the squad and Bernie was Ukraine. They supported billions for war, but did nothing for people in their districts. But you failed to mention it because you supported the war too, Jordan. You supported war. You supported Biden in war, and I ended my Patreon support for you. I'll retweet that one. And then you saw his reply. Let's see if there's more reply in this one here. Okay. I said to stop. And then I guess he goes on before the other person. But if disagreeing with a journalist on something, even though you're wrong on my position, he was not wrong on your position. This is what they try to go. I supported it in the beginning, but now I don't. So that makes me not. If you supported it half the time and half the time you didn't, how come you're only able to describe your current status as not supporting it? So it is absolutely correct, the position, because you, by your own tweet, said you supported it in the beginning. I agree with helping them in the immediate. When the immediate became indefinitely and was clearly a boondoggle, I said to stop. In order for to say to stop, that means you had to have said green in the beginning, right? So that is a spot on, accurate critique of your position. Why couldn't you see from the beginning that it was a boondoggle? Other leftists like Katie Halpert and Aaron Monte, how come Aaron Monte called it out from the beginning? So he thought he was just going to say some bullshit and this person was going to go, oh, really? So now you're against it. Okay, let me start paying you some money through Patreon again. No, it's like, no, how come you couldn't see this boondoggle from the beginning? Not sure what you mean. See it from the beginning. Did America put Putin invade? Did America make Putin invade Ukraine? If you believe America and other countries shouldn't have aided Ukraine initially when it was being bombarded, we just disagree. And there goes the war. How is this anti-war? What do you mean? You see how he's trying to pretend like the descriptions that this person is given, he doesn't understand why. What do you mean? Not sure what you mean. Seen it from the beginning. Seen it from the beginning. Like how this person is pointing out Aaron Monte and Katie Halper, how they saw it from the beginning. The same thing you're trying to point out here. RBN saw it from the beginning. Margaret Kimberly saw it from the beginning. If you believe America and other countries, you mean Western chauvinist countries, shouldn't have aided Ukraine initially when it was being bombarded, we just disagree. Terrible, 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 this guy. But Ukraine didn't invade itself. Oh, is it? Am I missing something here? It's so telling that this guy is trying so hard. He's trying so hard to convey a position, a neoliberal position that nobody's down with. Okay, let me go back to this. One of the key pillars of the Sanders movement was opposing endless war. Why did you abandon that principle for Ukraine, a country that has banner left-wing political has banned left-wing political parties? You left this cred is suspect. So I'm going to read it with what I think the corrections are. Why did you abandon that principle for Ukraine, a country that has banned left-wing political parties? Your leftist credentials is suspect. This is his Patreon person. This is this Patreon person here calling him out. So let's now go back to some of what Jordan said. Now, I didn't even know he said all this, so this we're just in uncharted waters right now. And then I'm gonna be ending soon because this is real late. This is a very long stream. But Ukraine didn't invade itself. I don't recall most prominent left positions being for the U.S. to do nothing. You see how he layered what he said with a caveat. Prominent. Is Margaret Kimberly from the Black Agenda Report? Is that not prominent left position? Is she not a prominent leftist? Positions being for U.S. to do nothing. Where was I? Did I click something? Okay. For U.S. to do nothing at the onset of the war and let Russia seize Ukraine. If that was the position of Aaron and Katie, would love you to send me examples. If so, I don't agree. I think where we differ is I don't believe it's wise to allow all the other nuclear heavyweights to go and topple other countries by brutal force, despite Russia having valid grievances. You see how he tries to throw that in? What he's trying to do is he's trying to walk a fine line of being pro-imperialist, pro-NATO, but then also giving a bow to the anti-imperialist people. That's what he's doing right here, despite Russia having valid grievances. Because if Russia has valid grievances, that should change everything in what you're saying, sir. You can't have all the points from a person as if Russia doesn't have valid grievances and then just throw that in there in a parenthesis and makes it all better. It does not. Because all of you, what you say is against Russia having valid grievances. But early on, it became clear this was about regime change and greasing skids of military industrial complex. Not only just early on, but before it happened. That's why you're not getting any likes on your own fucking post throughout this whole thing. And Jordan, I mean, what does he have? 100,000 subscribers, followers? Getting nothing. Now, let's continue, which is when I said, I think we should stop arming Ukraine. I believe 6 or so months ago. But I disagree with the onset doing nothing, allowing Putin to topple Ukraine and kill God knows how many. Look at the fucking... Russia went in with very delicate hands in the beginning. And as a journalist, that's something you should know. So to now throw this part in for Putin to topple Ukraine and kill God knows how many. It's the professional managerial class trying to play both sides here. Separately, I have a major issue with racism of it all, with the racism of it all. Now he's trying his best. The very same media elites and suburbanites with their Ukraine flags could care less about the millions slaughtered in Yemen. You see that? So he thinks he's better because, yes, I'm for funding Ukraine in the beginning. Now I'm not. That makes me better. And they're not calling out these other places. And the same media is not, and the same media and Ukraine flag owners are not doing anything about some of these other places. You notice how those get a little bit likes, even though it's not a lot. But all his other stuff supporting the war does not. Quote, did America make Putin invade Ukraine? This person answers the question, and we're going to end with this question here. Yes, we were funding the ongoing civil war in eastern Ukraine, and Putin had this war won long before he invaded. Now, let's see what Jordan had to say. Yes, sorry, disagree with that. And that's coming from someone who believes Russia has a legitimate grievance and threats from NATO. That's it. Like I said, Jordan and the professional managerial class, the only teaming up I'm wanting to do with them is if they're taking a back seat. You're taking a back seat and taking orders from the marginalized communities that's leading this fight. Because you have been proven to have terrible takes. You've been proven to sell out people. And then that's it, man. There's no more buying this bullshit that you guys want to sell.